Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Good afternoon, I'm Tamsin Roberts. This is your news at 3 o'clock. The Prime Minister has been accused of leading a culture of disregard for COVID rules. It comes after a new picture emerged of Boris Johnson taking part in an online Downing Street quiz flanked by colleagues during last year's lockdown. There was no evidence of social distancing and masks weren't worn. At the time, London was in Tier 2, which meant there should have been no mixing of households indoors apart from support bubbles. Labour's Deputy Leader Angela Rayner says he's unfit to lead the country. Some people in Nottinghamshire agree.
I really do think that he is making a lot of mistakes. I don't think he should be in government. I'm not sure that I think the Conservative Party should be in government, to be honest. They've all broken so many rules.
Well, I think it's wrong what they did, and,
If he doesn't do anything, he's going to get blamed, and if he does something, he's going to get blamed anyway, innit?
I don't see anybody else to lead the country, really, at the moment. There's no other leaders out there.
The new COVID restrictions are expected to become law, with Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer confirming his party will support the government in Tuesday's vote. The booster programme is also being extended to curb the rise in Omicron cases. Millions of people aged between 30 and 39 will be offered third jabs in England from tomorrow. The UK Health Security Agency has warned further measures may be needed to tackle the new variant, which is spreading fast. Scotland's hospitality sector is stepping up its call for financial support after the government reintroduced COVID restrictions. Businesses say they're seeing mass cancellations and will need help to survive the Christmas period. The government is now considering tighter measures after new self-isolation rules came into force. Paul Waterson, a spokesperson for the Scottish Licensed Trade Association, says he's shocked and worried about what it'll do to business.
Came as a bolt of the blue for us. We had geared up, many people had got food in and so on, and was geared up for a really busy weekend. This is the worst scenario we could have. We're open, but people have been told not to come in. It takes us back to the very beginning of all this, when you might remember that the Prime Minister said that pubs would stay open, but people shouldn't go in them.
A gun has been recovered from the scene in West London where a man was shot and killed by police. Officers responded to reports of a man carrying a firearm entering a bank and a bookmaker's in Kensington yesterday. Witnesses reported hearing 3 shots. He was treated by emergency crews but died at the scene. The Met Police says the incident is not being treated as terrorism. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has reportedly suffered a stroke in prison. His fiancée Stella Morris says it happened during the High Court battle over his extradition to the US. She said the stroke was triggered by stress over his future. He's currently being held at HMP Belmarsh, a high-security prison in London. His lawyers are expecting to take his case to the Supreme Court. The Foreign Secretary has promised a further £75 million in aid to Afghanistan. It follows discussions at the G7 meeting in Liverpool about what action can be taken to address the worsening humanitarian situation and how to engage with the Taliban. It brings the UK's financial commitment to Afghanistan to £286 million this year. Officials say no funding will go directly to the Taliban, but charities will be used instead. And Lewis Hamilton has missed out on a record-breaking 8th Formula One World Championship after a dramatic end to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Hamilton led from the start, but rival Max Verstappen was able to overtake him in the final lap to secure the win and his first ever title. Hamilton would have become the outright most successful Formula One driver of all time with the victory. That's all from me for now. We'll be back in an hour.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Looking ahead to this afternoon, in the UK is looking largely dry across England and Wales, with rain clearing from Northern Ireland and southern Scotland. Southwest England will often be cloudy through this afternoon, with perhaps the odd spot of drizzle, turning increasingly windy across the far west, but very mild for the time of year. Over to southeast England, and it should remain mostly dry here this afternoon, with just a few glimmers of sunshine for a lucky few. Moving over to Cardiff, there'll be a lot of cloud across Wales, particularly in the north and west. Some sheltered eastern spots may see a little sunshine. Across the Midlands and into northwest England, it will be drier this afternoon compared to this morning, with spells of sunshine developing. Highs will reach around 13 Celsius, which is 55 in Fahrenheit. In the northeast, patchy rain will continue to move northwards away from Newcastle and the surrounding areas. Some brighter skies moving in from the south. Highs reaching around 11 Celsius with generally light southerly winds. Northern Scotland will remain bright for a little longer, with a few showers around. However, thicker cloud in the south, along with outbreaks of rain, will move north later. It'll also continue to become brighter across Northern Ireland as the afternoon moves on. However, it will become very windy as we move into this evening, highs of 12 Celsius. Turning wet and windy across the northwest of the UK this evening, drier elsewhere but breezy and mild. And that is how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello and welcome to We Need to Talk About, your weekend fix, where I pose a question that needs plenty of time for discussion. And today, we need to talk about cryptocurrency. The limits to a virtual existence seem increasingly boundless. At first, we just found our old friends and swapped digitised reproductions of grainy Polaroids. Then came a multitude of social media platforms, news websites, online shopping and streamed entertainment. Now, there's a whole metaverse out there waiting for us to abandon the material world and jump feet first into the life of your avatar. So, it was always inevitable that money would follow suit. And a complex world of cryptocurrencies really sprang to life in 2009 with the pioneer Bitcoin. Actually, the very first virtual currency was conjured up back in 1983, making it the same age as me and almost a decade older than the euro. Yet somehow the concept of anything other than hard tender has rather eluded me, despite now there being a multitude of online currencies. A little digging into the Idiot's Guide to Crypto informs me that they are essentially a collection of binary data designed to work as a medium of exchange without any centralized control and working through distributed ledger technology, usually a blockchain. Yet at this point, I entered a fugue state and decided to stick to stuff with the Queen's face on it. Well, if you are as confused as me, you've come to the right place, as I haven't the faintest idea of what it all means, and I'm increasingly worried we're about to be plunged into yet another world where innovation fast outstrips any attempts to impose regulation. And before you know it, a Wild West exists in some corner of the internet with ominous real-world implications. Cryptocurrency to me seems like some sort of Bond villain creation, designed to enable and disguise nefarious deeds, controlled in some murky underground complex with banks of computers, manned by geeks rubbing their hands together with glee as Capital Flight watches real-world currencies collapse, plunging the world into chaos, while only a handful of MIT graduates hold the passwords to unlock billions of dollars worth of missing money. And yet, 1 in 10 of you seem to get this new system with a whole host of apps and platforms being advertised to help you to trade your virtual assets or even become a miner, helping to process and authorise transactions to get more virtual cash. And if all of this wasn't complex enough, some other bright spark has come up with NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens, which, as far as I can tell, are digital assets that can be bought and hoarded on the projection of future value, much like some kind of meta Van Gogh original. One assumes the distracted boyfriend meme would, at this point, be worth the same as a Picasso. Almost £10 billion worth of NFTs have already been sold in the UK, and last month, the most expensive NFT went for a song at 124,457 Ethereum, which apparently is worth about, well, $532 million. No wonder a chap in Newport pleaded with the council to ferret around in landfill to recover his laptop hard drive containing 7,500 bitcoins that he accidentally threw away back in 2013 and are now valued at over 200 million quid. Yet, for all of its beguiling promises of boundless fortune, due to their very nature, cryptocurrencies can be volatile, and we're warned of various imminent crashes, it seems, every other day. So, is it safe to invest? Today, Parliament's Economic Affairs Committee has been discussing whether to embrace digital currency and regulate it. So, if, like me, you don't get what it is, perhaps it's time to wrap your head around it, because it's on its way. Today, we really need to talk about cryptocurrency. Well, joining me first is the director at the Centre for Cryptocurrency Research at Imperial College London. Who better? Professor William Knottenbelt. First, William, can you give me a simpler explainer of cryptocurrency and its origins?
Hi, Alex. Sure.
Hi.
I think John Oliver put it very well when he said that cryptocurrency is everything that we don't understand about money combined with everything that we don't understand about computers, right? I think it's important to realize that what's going on here is a new kind of payments technology that's designed to work without the traditional intermediaries that we normally have when it comes to payments. So if you think about how the internet has kind of broadened the way we produce and disseminate and consume information, so cryptocurrency technology is going to do the same for the way we work with payments. So just like the only thing you need now to establish a website and connect to the internet is a web browser, so the only thing you need to do in order to get involved in cryptocurrency technology is to have some wallet software. So it's a way of broadening people's access to kind of payments and democratizing that.
How much has it increased in its use? How popular is it today? I sometimes feel like I'm really behind the curve on this. Even one of my best mates, who I didn't think was that bright when it came to finances, is there on her laptop trading cryptocurrencies of all different kinds. And I just feel like I've missed the boat on all of this.
Yeah, if you think this all started 10 years ago with some anonymous author calling himself Satoshi Nakamoto wrote a paper, right? And that was the first cryptocurrency system, is called Bitcoin. And since then, about 15,000 other cryptocurrencies have been created. And I mean, the combined market value is now about $2.5 trillion. So I mean, this is really something significant. If you think of all the gold reserves in the world amount to $7 trillion, you know, cryptocurrency is fast closing in on that. And of course, it's becoming very popular with young people as a means of kind of protecting their wealth against inflation and so on.
So does that mean that if there's $2.5 trillion worth of cryptocurrency, does that mean $2.5 trillion worth of hard currency has left the market and been turned into this digital currency? Or am I massively missing the point on this?
So, see, I think crypto enthusiasts would disagree with your definition of ordinary, you know, fiat currency, pounds, dollars, and so on as being hard currency, right? Because one of the fundamental characteristics of many cryptocurrencies is that they have a very limited supply. which is something I don't think you could necessarily say about traditional fiat currencies, right? Especially if you look at all the liquidity that's been injected into economies as a result of, for example, the coronavirus crisis, the global financial crisis, and so on. I think people are beginning to question whether traditional currencies like the pound and the dollar and so on really are hard currencies in that respect. I think they would rather look for assets that had or homes for their money that were genuinely scarce and limited in supply. And that's part of the attraction, I think, of cryptocurrencies to people.
Some countries are now actually using it as valid tender. I hear El Salvador has allowed, is it Bitcoin, to be part of their national currency?
Yeah, indeed, they've adopted it as legal tender. I must say, you know, I'm quite a crypto enthusiast, but I did not think that that was going to happen so soon, that a nation state would actually adopt Bitcoin as their legal tender. It's quite a bold move. It remains to be seen whether that's actually going to be something that is workable. It's certainly an interesting experiment that a lot of people are going to be watching and looking to see what happens. I mean, many economists and central bankers would say that it's a disaster to have a deflationary currency as your legal tender. Well, we're going to have to see how it turns out.
Now, a phrase that I've heard a few people mention is mining. And for the life of me, however many times people explain blockchain and mining to me, I can't wrap my head around it. So I want to see if you can do a better job.
Yeah, so mining is just the process of creating new cryptocurrency. So if you think about how mineral mining works, you have a great big machine, maybe with a bucket excavator at the front of it, right? And you feed in electricity at one end. So I think the largest machines like this are called the bagger machines, and they take in about 20 megawatts of electricity, and they scoop the earth and they extract whatever commodity it is that they are looking for. So cryptocurrency mining works like this as well. What you're trying to do is you are trying to win the right to publish new blocks of transactions. And when you do that, you get a reward. Now, the machinery that you need to do that actually some of it can be very, very sophisticated. So if you want to mine Bitcoin, you need very specialist technology these days. If you are looking, for example, just to mine Ethereum, then the sort of graphics card like this that you might have in a gaming PC is all you need. And there's some other more modern cryptocurrencies as well, such as Helium, which actually require very little energy to mine. You just need what's called a little hotspot that uses just 5 watts of electricity. So yeah, mining is basically just the process of producing new units of cryptocurrency. And it can be quite computationally intensive.
Professor William Nottenbelt, thank you ever so much for coming and giving me, and I assume some of our viewers out there, an explainer, an introduction to cryptocurrency. I can't say I'm any the wiser, to be honest, but I really do appreciate it. Now, cryptocurrencies are, of course, unregulated here in the UK, but there are discussions as early as today over creating a centralised bank for digital currency. In the studio with me now is John Butler, the head of Treasury at Tally Money, a gold-backed savings and payment platform. What current regulations, if any, are there in place for cryptocurrency?
Well, essentially none, unless you include in what counts as regulation, a basic legal structure in society, property rights, some sort of judiciary to adjudicate disputes, rule of law. I mean, in that sense, you could say that people can claim that they have Bitcoin, they own Bitcoin, they trade it with someone else, but Bitcoin by design doesn't necessarily need that sort of infrastructure. And indeed, if you combine the concept of a digital currency with a distributed ledger, as it were, and modern encryption technology, in theory, transactions are so anonymous, there would be no recourse to fraud. And the purpose of more activist regulation in the world we inhabit today, and this certainly includes the financial and banking system, is to try and make sure that fraud does not take place, and that if you discover it somewhere, there is recourse to that. And hence why, in fact, because the whole nature of finance and banking and money is that it is intangible, and you really do need some sort of robust framework to prevent things being missold and to prevent duplicate transactions and other forms of fraud within that.
So if you're a punter and you've gone and bought a load of whatever it may be, whatever a cryptocurrency that you've invested in, and then something happens and it crashes, or you feel like you've been done by badly, there's really no one you can go to and say, help, someone's nicked my crypto coins.
Well, as it stands now, we are operating, at least with respect to Bitcoin, this is not true necessarily of all of these digital currencies springing up, but with respect to Bitcoin, it really is caveat emptor in extremis. That is what you currently have. Now, in a way, again, that's by design, and you could argue that people are embracing that as they choose to invest in, or some would argue purely speculate in, Bitcoin. And so, it is still a regulatory no man's land. But now, I mean, as Professor Nittelbach, I did start to pronounce that name, explained, so many people are involved in it. So many households. The proverbial widows and orphans are getting involved. And so I can see the political push now to try to create some sort of regulatory framework. But again, can you regulate something which is designed to be unregulated? It's a good question, and no one has a clear answer yet.
I mean, I always get the impression that cryptocurrency is used by dodgy people on the dark web to pay for nefarious things. Is that right?
Well, I mean, let's place this in context, okay? As we know, money laundering occurs a lot and almost everywhere that there is a bank, that there is a currency, no matter how well regulated it is. The idea that somehow cryptocurrency is suddenly enabling a greater amount of money laundering, or who knows what it is, tax avoidance, evasion, and so on and so forth, it's actually currently difficult to make that case. And indeed, the biggest money laundering cases ever tend to include major currencies and major too-big-to-fail banks. So the idea that somehow these upstart cryptos are the source of the problem, I think, is not true. That said, yes, they probably can be abused if desired. Let's keep in mind, cryptocurrency, or digital currency more generally, is a technology. All technologies can theoretically be used for good or evil. They can be used either honestly or dishonestly. I'm not sure there's anything fundamentally dishonest about the structure of Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies.
Is there a risk that cryptocurrencies, if there's all of a sudden a huge flight of hard currency or capital out of the hard currency market, where people like me, I finished doing this program and I think, that's it, I think crypto's the way forward, I'm going to throw all my savings into crypto, and a lot of people do the same, could that pose a risk to hard currencies and things like, gold-backed investment?
Well, let's think about the current monetary system that we have. And this is true throughout the world, basically. You have national so-called fiat currencies that in theory have no inherent intrinsic value, but are the legal tender of the land and the tender in which you must keep your account in order to calculate your tax liabilities, so on and so forth. And the governments are there, the central banks are there with the help of the governments to enforce their acceptance. Okay, well, that sounds nice, like a robust regulatory framework, but history demonstrates that in fact it can be abused. Sometimes central banks print too much money. Sometimes they cause big inflation problems. Sometimes those inflation problems are so big, they cause the complete collapse of the monetary and financial system. And we've seen quite a few examples of this, indeed so many, that no unbacked paper currency has ever survived in history, except for those currently in existence. And those have been only truly unbacked since the 1970s, which is, still within the lifetime of an awful lot of people alive today. In a way, while many regard cryptocurrency as a grand monetary experiment, a fascinating one to watch, you can make the case that the entire unbacked paper fiat money is a world that we live in is also a running experiment that has yet to conclude. And in a world of zero or negative interest rates, quantitative easing, exponential rates of money supply growth, and banks that are still in many cases appear to be relatively weak, potentially unstable, undercapitalized, that looks like an experiment to me that may not conclude the way people want it to.
You've just heard from the director at the Centre for Cryptocurrency Research and Engineering at Imperial College London, Professor William Nottenbelt. I was also joined by John Butler, the head of Treasury at Tally Money, a gold-backed savings and payment platform. Now, after the break, I'm continuing this conversation with Dominic Frisby, who's an author and comedian, and he's invested in Bitcoin. And Josh Sandhu, he will join me. He's the co-founder of the Qantas Gallery, Europe's first advisory service for digital assets called NFTs. If If you want to know more, I'll see you in a couple of minutes. You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for the Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is the Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
You're watching GB News live across the UK, the world, and our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We're here for you. Don't forget to join our community by hitting the subscribe button.
And download the GB News app so you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you. Email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
Well, as house prices continue to creep up and inflation inflates, and pensions are hit by ever-growing uncertainty, a lot of people are being drawn to leaving the bounds of hard currency forever at the whim of twitchy markets and government policy, and are taking matters into their own hands by investing in cryptocurrencies. But what are they, and are they safe? Growing numbers of punters are now buying and trading virtual cash, while Tesla became the first company to accept transactions in Bitcoin, and El Salvador has made it legal tender. If you haven't got a bulging virtual wallet, then, well, frankly, you're behind the curve. With ever more options to buy and trade cryptocurrencies on offer, what would happen to real money if we all suddenly turned our hard cash into virtual assets? Does it desperately need to be regulated before it gets out of control? Can you trust it? And who's there to pick up the pieces if it all goes wrong? Today, I'm joining you, the viewer, on a journey into the vaults of the internet as we try to navigate the complex terrain of cryptocurrency. I'm delighted to say joining me now in the studio is fellow GB News presenter. We don't have favourites in this, we really don't. And also author of the book Bitcoin, The Future of Money. It's comedian Dominic Frisby. Now, you invest in cryptocurrencies. You know all about this stuff, and I have no idea. I don't trust it. I'm a Luddite. I'm a troglodyte. So convince me.
Well, I have a piece of paper. I've gone and left my piece of paper in my coat, which is over there. But it's a piece of paper that shows
how much you could have bought things for in 1970 compared to what you could buy things for today. And so if you just compare the prices of things and you look at how dramatically prices have fallen and how much less every year your pound buys you. For example, your pound buys you 11% less house this year than it did a year ago. And you look at the rapidly depreciating nature of the pound, then it was interesting in your monologue there, in your interview, you described the pound as hard money. And I would describe it as anything but hard money. It is very soft money because the government prints it when it suits them. It's being rapidly debased. Interest rates don't reflect real inflation. And we're looking at the rapid decline in the purchasing power of your money and thus the rapid decline in the value of your salary. And Milton Friedman used to say inflation is taxation without legislation. And effectively, anything but depending on which measure you use of inflation is currently 6% if you use the old measure. It's probably much higher than that. And interest rates are 0.1% or something. So anything between 6 and 12 or 13% of your salary, Alex, is being sequestered by the government as they debase money to pay for their spiralling costs. And so Bitcoin was invented in reaction to this to provide a currency whose supply, a hard money, an actual hard money, whose supply is finite. It's also a breakthrough new technology. And in reaction to all the printing that's going on, its price keeps on, year on year, it keeps on appreciating.
So is it the case that there's an absolute number of Bitcoins out there? They're not going to make any more, they're not, and so basically it's supply and demand?
Yeah, Bitcoin was designed to be a digital reflection of how gold works. And if you imagine, all the gold in the world, it only increases by how much gets mined every year, which is about 2 or 3%. And quite interestingly, if you look at the growth in gold, it's exactly the same. It reflects population growth. So we have pretty much the same gold per capita as we did 100 or 1,000 years ago. I think that makes it natural money. And Bitcoin was designed to be a digital reflection of that, a digital recreation of that. And so the maximum number of Bitcoins there will ever be will be 21 million. And there are currently about 19 million. So the inflation rate is transparent. We know exactly how many Bitcoins are going to be created over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years because it's all laid out in the code. On the other hand, we have no idea how many pounds are going to be created, how many dollars are created. That's at the whims of some central banker.
But it's not just Bitcoin. There's loads of them out there now. I think someone told me like 14,000 different cryptocurrencies. So, in this crazy new world of digital currencies, I still can't wrap my head around it as hard as I try. Look, I'm blonde. I'm struggling. If you were beginning to say, well, I'm interested in this and your arguments sound plausible and I want to protect my money and I want to have an asset that's going to appreciate in value, how do you choose?
Just go with Bitcoin. It was the first, it's got the biggest network, it's the simplest, and there are between 12 and 14,000. A lot of them are just idle computer experiments. A lot of them have functions that aren't necessarily to be money. A lot of them is like money to be used in video games and stuff like that. A lot of them are currencies on which, a bit like an app store, if you think you've got the app store with Apple, and then as a result of the app store, all sorts of people can build apps on top of the app store and release them through the app store. There are some currencies whose purpose is that. But if your purpose is purely to be a savings vehicle and to get to familiarise yourself, then just start with Bitcoin. And if you like it, you can dive in deeper.
So you start off with your own national currency or whatever, and you make the transaction to buy your first Bitcoin or whatever using your own currency. And then after that, how easy is it to turn it back into your own currency for real world purchases if you couldn't do them via Bitcoin?
Well, you don't ever need to. Because once it's an entirely new network. It's like going, once you start sending emails, how do you send letters? Well, you can carry on sending letters if you want, but once you're in the digital world of emails, you're kind of there and you never need to leave it. And I mean, you said in your introduction, I'm sorry to be finicky, but that Tesla's the first company to start accepting Bitcoin. It isn't. Companies have been accepting Bitcoin for over 10 years. And gradually more and more companies are doing it, and you can buy stuff, sell stuff with it. We can do our first transaction right now.
Yeah, I know. You're going to sort of take away my cryptocurrency virginity. Let's do this live on TV.
So I will send you If you get, you've downloaded an
So
app.
I've downloaded this app. I don't know if you can see this here. Here's my phone, and where am I? Somewhere over here. But maybe not over there. But I've downloaded what's called Moon, right? A cryptocurrency
That's just a basic cryptocurrency wallet,
and
yeah.
you can send me.
Yeah, so if you go on your thing, it should
Yes.
have a thing that says send and receive.
Yeah.
So if you press receive,
put myself in receiving mode, there
and
I
you
am.
should get one of those barcode
I've got
things.
a QR code.
A QR code comes
Yeah.
up. So I'm just going to I'm going to scan it here on my phone. There we go, and I've got your payment details. And because I really like you, Alexandra, I'm going to send you £1.
A whole pound. How much is this in Bitcoin? I'm about to find out,
well,
aren't
it's
I? Here we go. So
0.00
here it is.
something.
Here's my QR code, and apparently I am about to receive.
And I've just sent it now.
Here we go.
So
Let's see
any
how good the
second,
Wi-Fi is.
You should receive £1.
So just there it is. £1 received. Let's have a little look. £1's now been received, and apparently I now have. So wait for this. I have 0.0003497 Bitcoins.
Yeah, or
it's not
you've
exactly...
got 3,459 sats is what you've got.
Sats.
A sats is a millionth of a Bitcoin, and you that's the sort of the equivalent of pennies, if you like.
Now, can I look forward to this wildly appreciating? And in 20 years' time, I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to be Dominic. You've changed my life. I'm finally on the housing ladder. In fact, I bought a castle.
If you'd bought that if you had that £1 in cryptocurrency 10 years ago, it'd be worth £42,000 today.
Wow! And do you project that this is going to carry on an upwards trajectory? Because we hear all the time, don't we, that it's going to collapse, it's going to crash. If
Only
more and more people like me
who
think,
don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
It's not going to appreciate to the extent that it has previously, because it was a breakthrough new technology. It had incredible first mover advantage and so on. But it will continue to appreciate because it's a breakthrough new technology. It's the future. Money is and has always been determined by technology. Ever since we first started using clay tokens in ancient Mesopotamia, and then we baked them inside clay balls, and then we worked out how to handwriting, so debts were recorded on clay ledgers, and then we started using paper money when the printing press was invented, and then as digital technology grew in the 70s, 80s and 90s, we stopped using checks and paper money, we started using digital money, and cryptographic technology is the latest advancement. It's far sounder than the pound in your pocket. It is inevitable. It is our destiny.
I know it is.
The other thing I would point out, it is you don't have to. You drive a car, you don't understand how.
I don't understand normal money, and I still somehow manage to spend that like it's going out of fashion.
And what you have to understand is the internet is a borderless medium, and Bitcoin is money for the internet. So, if, for example, I could send that £1 to somebody in wherever, Timbuktu, if I wanted to, and they would receive £1 in Bitcoin. It is a borderless money, and if I wanted to send £1, a micropayment like that, to somebody in Timbuktu via HSBC, it would cost me probably £30. It would take 3 days. It's just not an effective system of money for the internet. Whereas Bitcoin is, and that's what it's designed for. It is money for the internet.
Well, internet's something I don't trust, but I'm going to trust you. Dominic, thank you so much. Well, joining me now is Josh Sandhu, who is the co-founder of Quantus Gallery, which is Europe's first advisory service for NFTs. Josh, tell me, what exactly is an NFT?
That is the question. It's a question that we're hearing, like every day practically at Quantus Galleries. And we're hearing that from artists who are looking to explore the scene themselves. We're from collectors, from investors. If I'm to break it down in its simplest terms, NFT is really a certificate. It's a certificate of authenticity, certificate of ownership. And it just so happens that that certificate has a piece of art attached, or could even be a bit of music or media, anything really. And what that certificate says is who owns it and who created it, when it was transferred, who bought it, and there's only one copy issued with that certificate. So in theory, that's where the value comes, because other copies of that piece of artwork or video or meme, they don't have that certificate. So that's sort of like the long and short of it, really.
So would I be simplifying or getting this wrong if I said it's a bit like sort of buying the intellectual property or rights of something, the original something, and it's always a digital asset?
Yes, it's always a digital asset. However, there are some in this sphere, like traditional artists, they produce an NFT of their traditional work. So sometimes there is an underlying tangible asset that they include in it, but the value is in the NFT itself.
I mean, I've never heard of NFTs before this morning, frankly, but I've learned that they've contributed almost £10 billion to the economy. How come there's so much money in this country?
Yeah, it's quite insane when you think about it. It's only been around for a few years, really. But, it's very much a part of the crypto space, the crypto sphere itself. In the last 12 years since the inception of Bitcoin, that's just been growing year on year. People call it a bubble, but, the general trend is upwards. And that's the same thing with NFTs. So it's actually an extension of Ethereum and a couple of other blockchains. But yeah, for the first time in the history of the art market, digital artists have been able to enter into the art market, and people have been jumping into it full force.
So if someone out there is thinking, well, I want me some of that, I'm going to get me an NFT for Christmas, how do they go about doing that?
There's all sorts of places. Some of the biggest marketplaces, they're called like OpenSea, Nifty Gateway, and they function pretty much in the same way that most people are familiar with, like on Amazon. You literally type in a keyword or you browse collections. If there's something that you like the look of, then, as long as you have crypto, and you do now, you have £1, I believe, you can just go ahead and buy it in an instant, and it goes straight into your wallet, onto your phone. So it's very, very simple, but it can be a little bit overwhelming, which is kind of also the reason why we have an advisory side for Qantas, just to help guide people, and we're producing a series of videos just to, hold people's hands into this space,
Josh, thank you so much. I certainly need my hand holding into that space. That's Josh Sandu, who's co-founder of the Qantas Gallery, Europe's first advisory service for NFTs. I'm going to flip back quickly to Dominic, because you've created an NFT, haven't you?
Yeah, we've done several. Earlier in the year, do you know what the word fungible means? It's quite important. Shall I explain? Okay, so
thank you.
With the word fungible, NFT stands for non-fungible token. Now, it's essential that money be fungible, that a pound here is the same as a pound there, or all pounds are the same. And Bitcoin is fungible, all Bitcoins are the same. Whereas the idea of NFTs is they're non-fungible, so every piece is different. So they can't serve as money, but they can serve as store of wealth for collectors. And it's like getting, the very first, say, Sgt. Pepper's album.
It's like putting a Van Gogh in a vault in a bank.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But digitally.
Right.
And so that's effectively what NFTs are. And earlier in the year, somebody I know, some insurrectionist, irreverent person, started projecting all these slanderous messages on various buildings around London. You might have seen some of them, they were widely shared on social media. And so me and the guy made them into NFTs, and we sold them on this website called Rareable. And they're now, the person who bought them now has them on display on Rareable, and if somebody else wants to buy them, these little digital collectors' works of art of this, memoirs of this insurrection.
Oh, yeah, the Banksy of the cryptocurrency world, you. Dominic, thank you ever so much. You've just heard from Dominic Frisby, who's an author and comedian. He's invested in Bitcoin. I was also joined by Josh Sandu, the co-founder of the Qantas Gallery, Europe's first advisory service for digital assets called NFTs. After the break, I'm continuing this conversation with your views on cryptocurrency, as I'm asking, do you trust digital money? See you in a couple of minutes.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me from 9 p.m. to midnight every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Now, before we hear what you think, let's have a quick recap from the experts. Director of the Centre for Cryptocurrency Research at Imperial College London, who better than Professor William Nottenbelt, who says the industry has grown since it started 10 years ago.
Then about 15,000 other cryptocurrencies have been created, and I mean the combined market value is now about $2.5 trillion. So I mean this is really something significant. If you think of all the gold reserves in the world amount to $7 trillion, cryptocurrency is fast closing in on that. And of course, it's becoming very popular with young people as a means of kind of protecting their wealth against inflation and so on.
Now, Head of Treasury at Tally Money, John Butler, says investors do embrace Bitcoin, but says it does need to be regulated.
It really is caveat emptor in extremis. That is what you currently have. Now, in a way, again, that's by design, and you could argue that people are embracing that as they choose to invest in, or some would argue purely speculate in, Bitcoin. And so, it is still a regulatory no man's land. But now, I mean, as Professor it's hard to pronounce that name, explained, so many people are involved in it. So many households. The proverbial widows and orphans are getting involved. And so I can see the political push now to try to create some sort of regulatory framework. But again, can you regulate something which is designed to be unregulated? It's a good question, and no one has a clear answer yet.
Well, Josh Sandu is co-founder of Quantus Gallery, Europe's first advisory service for NFTs. Now, those are digital assets. He says the industry has grown immensely.
It's quite insane when you think about it. It's just only been around for a few years, really. But, it's very much a part of the crypto space. The cryptosphere itself, the last 12 years since the inception of Bitcoin, that's just been growing year on year. People call it a bubble, but, the general trend is upwards. And that's the same thing with NFTs. So it's actually an extension of Ethereum and a couple of other blockchains. But yeah, for the first time in the history of the art market, digital artists have been able to enter into the art market, and people have been jumping into it full force.
Well, I do hope that this show today has given those like me who don't get this whole cryptocurrency stuff a bit of an introduction to it. The final word from my guests goes to our own GB News presenter, author and comedian Dominic Frisby, who's a dab hand at cryptocurrencies. And he says the growth of Bitcoin is transparent.
Designed to be a digital reflection of how gold works. And if you imagine, all the gold in the world, it only increases by how much gets mined every year, which is about 2 or 3%. And quite interestingly, if you look at the growth in gold, it's exactly the same. It reflects population growth. So we have pretty much the same gold per capita as we did 100 or 1,000 years ago. I think that makes it natural money. And Bitcoin was designed to be a digital reflection of that, a digital recreation of that. And so the maximum number of Bitcoins there will ever be will be 21 million, and there are currently about 19 million. So the inflation rate is transparent. We know exactly how many Bitcoins are going to be created over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, because it's all laid out in the code. On the other hand, we have no idea how many pounds are going to be created, how many dollars are created. That's at the whims of some central banker.
Well, we did put a poll up today, and I was asking, do you trust digital money? And I've given you lots of people there to try and convince you that it's well worth investing in, but nope. 83.6% of you say not interested, don't trust it for 1 second, or should I say 1 iota? That would be more appropriate, wouldn't it? Now, we've heard what our guests have had to say, so let's take the time to see what you, the viewer, think about cryptocurrency. David says, I'm 100% invested in cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin will eventually become the global currency of choice. The dollar is losing value hand over fist. The more they print, the less it's worth. I love crypto. There you go. Be more like Dave. Mark says, absolutely no. Why would anyone invest in it? The market isn't stable, so it's too much of a risk at the moment. Harry says, crypto, yes. Anything from a bank? No. Nice and simple there, Hazza. Brian says, if you answered no, you're living in the dark ages. Crypto is the future. Some might say, Brian, that it's the present. Ian says, it depends what you mean by trust. It's very safe in the way transactions are secured. However, it's highly volatile in terms of value. Will says, it's a lot better than government-controlled paper money. We all, or most of us, use digital money daily in the sense of debit card transactions. There you go. Maybe crypto's not so creepy after all. If it was centralized, says Alan, and a programmable currency, then no, it can't be trusted. But it's decentralized, isn't it? If I've learned anything, it's that. Chris says, it's great. I keep my own coins in my own wallet. No bank required. No pockets, one imagines either, because they generally have a maximum supply, so inflation is negated. It's great. Tom says, cryptocurrencies seem to be at the whim of celebrity billionaires. I'll stick with the pounds in my pocket.
Just start by telling us, Andy, in a nutshell, what is car share?
Easiest way to describe car share is like an Airbnb equivalent for cars. We enable car owners who have a car they're not using very much, or 2 cars, the second one being not used very much, to be able to share and rent those cars out to other people who live nearby. We call them renters. The renters can then access those cars through an application and open the car simply through the phone. So we enable owners to share cars and rent them to renters.
So it's connected to the car and it's showing you exactly which car it is.
Yeah, so this is, I'm now in rental.
Yeah.
As I get closer to the car, the phone connects to the car through Bluetooth. So there's no signal required, no phone signal.
Okay.
So that's all eradicated. This is now Bluetooth into the car.
Okay.
The functions to unlock and lock the car are now live. So if we unlock the car, you'll see it flash, hopefully. That's unlocked.
Wow.
That's just unlocked the car. So I'll get in the car now. Car's open. Off we go.
Wow. All through your phone?
Yeah.
We store, pick, pack and post on behalf of e-commerce sellers. So the guys that you buy from online, particularly in the last couple of years, people have been stuck at home buying from people online. We actually ship that stuff out.
So if you make stuff in your garden shed and sell it online, Hubu can take care of all the logistics, all the packaging, all the difficult stuff that really stops businesses from growing.
We can. We're unique in doing it for a much broader range of clients. Someone's always done that. They've always been fulfillment companies, which is what a company like ours is called. But they've tended to work with big clients, clients that have relatively few items and that ship them in huge volumes. We work with clients of all sizes, complex clients, clients that sell secondhand or vintage, small clients, people that do sell from their bedroom, so a really broad range.
I know you're also very keen to stress the environmental implications of what you're trying to do here with car share.
They've proven that for every one car shared, it can take up to 10 others off the road, which means that 10 other cars don't need to be produced or replaced if others are saying, look, I seldom use my car. Do you know what? I don't want to replace it with another vehicle. I'm going to use a car sharing scheme like car share to access cars when I need them. So that's a big deal, actually. Taking that number of cars off the roads creates such big positive benefits.
The industrial processes that go into making the actual physical car.
Yeah. So imagine if we were producing half as many cars, how much emissions we would save right at the start of the process. The other great thing, of course, is that when cars are shared, the people that use them, that rent them, do it because they're purpose-driven. They don't pop to the shops and therefore hire a car to go to Sainsbury's 10 minutes. They do proper activities, seeing things, seeing people, seeing places. So it reduces that short number of trips, which is really positive. The other aspect is the more cars we can take off our streets because of that, lack of replacement, people sharing more and people accessing more, there is more space on our streets. In some cities, congestion can be 25% or 25% of the congestion can be caused by the lack of a parking space. We're driving around for 20 minutes trying to find a place to park your car. With less cars in the future on our streets, much easier to find a space, that congestion eases and the pollution eases.
Tell us about the physical side of the business. What does it look like?
It looks unlike a traditional warehouse. So we really revolutionized the way the warehouse floor works. There are some fundamental problems with warehousing, the biggest one being that it makes people miserable. It has them walking miles and miles every day. So that's a fairly depressing job. So what we did was we created what's called a micro warehouse. And this was really the brainchild of Paul Dodd, my co-founder. The micro warehouse collapses the business into a smaller warehouse that is run by a single individual. So that might be a picker or a packer. For us, they manage the whole thing, more like a retail unit, all of the inbound, all of the outbound, the picking, the packing, the posting. And crucially, they engage with the client as well. So they get that feedback loop that lets them know they're doing a wonderful job or helps them if they're not. And that created a sense of ownership.
How about your East End background? Does that help?
It's made me tenacious and hardworking, and nothing gets in my way, nothing stops me. But it's also made me very concerned that the people that work for us should be treated properly and paid properly. We work really hard.
Because you know what it's like at the sharp end.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just got sharper and sharper over the last 10 or 15 years. Those kinds of jobs, the wages haven't increased. Meanwhile, for the rest of us, that they've tended to go up. Meanwhile, the cost of rent these days is ridiculous. It's really difficult for people to make ends meet that are doing those kinds of jobs.
Hi, I'm Alistair Stewart, and I really hope that you can join me here on GB News. I've been in this game for 40 years, and I've made lots of friends, but I try and reflect what they think about the big stories of the day in conversation with me. That's why we call it Alistair Stewart and Friends, and you're a key part of it as well. I always get inundated with emails and messages and texts, and if they're really good, I play them back to you. 12 till 3, every Saturday and Sunday.
I'm Alex Phillips, and you've been watching We Need to Talk About. And for the last hour, we've been talking about cryptocurrency. That's it for today. I'll see you next time.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.